Welcome everyone to our OnTap Lite series. It's a discussion series presented by Arctic Leaf. A little bit different, kind of a little more open forum, having some conversations with some of our ideal experts and individuals here at the company. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Josh Grelick. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Arctic Leaf, a 13-year-old digital agency that focuses on e-commerce development and bottom funnel and retention strategies. And I am joined today with the incredibly talented Holly, and I know I'm going to butcher your last name, so please help me out with that. Kindzierski, right?
It's easiest to just think Kindzierski.
Kindzierski.
There's some Polish pronunciation that's a little more, that gets the Z in there, but Kindzierski is just what I go with, though I don't use it in my creative works because it is just too much.
Point taken. So joining here with Holly, who's our phenomenal copywriter here at Arctic Leaf and supports a lot of our merchants on their retention strategies and creating this amazing copy content on a regular basis. And I'm super excited. Holly, do you want to just take 2 seconds and just tell you a quick little background about who you are and why you've gotten into content writing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a lifelong writer. And just when I moved to Montreal, I'm originally from Winnipeg. I was looking for work in that area, and I started off at another company with SEO writing. Then I took a little break and wanted to return to it and applied at Arctic Leaf when I saw that there was a copywriter position open. And I really love doing what I do here because it gives a lot of opportunity for creativity because we have such a variety of clients. And then in my personal time, I work all the time. So I also publish books. I do writing education on YouTube. And I recently launched a podcast called The Writing Craft that talks about writing and witchy stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. I guess it's, hence the ears that are continuously changing. So
Yes.
Definitely creativity. So we're super excited today because we're going to be talking about AI, artificial intelligence. It's been a super hot topic in the industry for some time. We had the craze. Every company was getting investments. All you have to basically do is say that you're an AI. So how does AI to actually how does one use AI in content writing and creation is some of the things we're going to cover. What are the benefits, right? Obviously, we know there's a lot of benefits. What are the drawbacks, right? There's concerns definitely in the industry around that. How to use AI in your business, and then ultimately some thought leadership around future of AI in content marketing and content creation. So let's kind of kick it off first, and we'll start with how AI is used in content creations. And I'm actually really excited because I know how I use it. My grammar is not that fantastic. I definitely use it to help support my email writing and some other things like that. And I recently wrote a kid's book for my kids. Well, not for my kids anymore, but I used to tell this story with them as they were growing up. But I'm actually really excited to hear how Holly uses this on a regular basis because I'm probably going to learn something new. So Holly, take it away. How do you use AI for content creation and writing? Talk to me about it.
Well, sometimes content comes to me, like that, but sometimes it doesn't. So there's actually a story I've told a few times in my writing education about how my dad, who's also an artist and writer, he used to work in a studio and there was this new artist in there and he was just not getting anything done. He wasn't doing anything. And all the guys were around him like, what are you doing? Are you going to do something? And out of frustration, one of them came and just drew a line on his canvas. And well, he sat down and he started drawing and then he was at it. And he just needed that little line, which was not the creativity, which was not the artistry, but that thing sort of kicked his brain into gear. And that's how I look at AI as a tool that I use day to day. So sometimes I write something and I don't think it's quite it, or sometimes I'm having trouble getting started. Like today, I'm a little woozy in the head because I think I'm getting sick. So, it's going to be a bit slower, right? Sometimes your brain isn't like speedy
Just
and
sharp.
yeah. And being able to just hop onto ChatGPT and being like, get me started, then then at that point I can be off to the races. And the funny thing is sometimes it does not give you at all what you want. And for me, I'm kind of obsessive and competitive. So when it's giving me something I don't like, that sometimes helps even more because I'm like, no, that's so wrong. I would do this so much better in this way. And then I write something great. So it's primarily for brainstorming for me. And I think that that's sort of how it should be used in creative ways, because you still really need that human element in there. So for me,
Yeah.
it's a tool. And it's great for social media, especially because like I don't like doing social media stuff a lot of the time, but I have so much of it that I have to do. And
It's the
whenever you're
world we
like,
live in.
yeah, and whenever you're like, oh, I just need to do this little announcement or something, but I can't get there because I'm focusing on other things, then you just say, okay, how would you do this? And you get this piece of copy that you can then tweak and work with the way you want. So it's, I guess, just to generally sum up how I use it, it's very much a support system for brainstorming and
Yeah.
getting my own creative process going.
Yeah, I love that story of just like you just putting a drawing a line on a blank
Mhm.
canvas, right? It really is the hardest part is starting. It's like anything,
Yeah.
working out, getting up at that 6 a.m., going to the gym, starting a new diet or no diet, but just eating regularly and healthy and all that kind of stuff. The hardest part is starting. So I think that's a really interesting perspective as to someone who writes content every single day for different brands. And I'm talking a vast variety of different brands from CPG, apparel, you have business to business. I think we have some industrial supply companies. I mean, you're
Hmm.
really the full gamut. So, how do you use that in day to day at Arctic Leaf? Like when you're actually like, do you ever get stuck? You ever sit there? Because I know you produce so much content on a regular basis. It's almost like a running joke here at the company of just like, okay, just give it to Holly. She'll knock it out in like 5 minutes. So I'm just kind of curious, like how that actually is leveraged day to
Um,
day in your day to day efforts of creating content for our customers and clients.
It's primarily for streamlining, and especially since I am the only copywriter at the company now. There used to be two of us, and now it's just me. So I need to make sure that I'm, being as productive as I can be every second of the day. And I use it to do that. So a lot of the time it'll lay a foundation for me. So like I write a lot of blogs, and
Yeah.
I spend a fair amount of time researching and outlining, and that helps in that process a lot because I found when I used to write blogs, because I have a writing blog as well, it would be like, okay, well, I know what I'm going to get into, but in what order should I do this? What should my headers be for everything? So if you get those headers to start, that does really streamline that process quite a bit.
Hmm.
And when it comes to copy, getting it to just shoot off like 10 different options for subject, preview, title, banner, and then you just look through that. And I don't think I've ever actually just used straightforward chat GPT copy. It
No.
feels like cheating. And it just doesn't sound that good. So it
Yeah.
sounds very machiney. So
Yeah.
I use quantity, and that's the brainstorming process. So I'll have like 10 titles, and looking at that, I can cobble them together and then add my own stuff in and go, okay, well, now this is it. Now this sounds good. Now it's creative. Now it's human, but it gives me those things that cut the initial foundation brainstorming process in half, because that can be so much of it.
Yeah.
And then it leaves more space to be creative. And I think that's something that people worry about, is that sacrificing of creativity, but it actually gives me more room to be creative.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that first of all, I love that you clarify that we don't just take everything off of ChatGPT and give
Yeah,
that to
no.
our clients. So
You can tell when people do.
I know, and we're going to get into that in a minute when we talk about the drawbacks.
Mhm.
But I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like it is a tool, right? It's something that you can leverage to allow you to speed up the process and get the creative juices going. So very, very much love that, which I think kind of segues right into like our benefits topic, right?
Yeah.
So like how that is helping. I mean, you've already kind of talked about it a little bit, right? But helping the idea phase, increasing efficiency, higher content output, right? You gave the example of like, hey, I can come up with, hey, give me 10 preview lines, right,
Mhm.
for an email on this for this subject matter. But in your own words, like how does ChatGPT or Bard or 100, all the different AI tools that are out there right now, able to help you kind of, what are the
Uh,
benefits that brings to the table?
Well, yeah, I think I've sort of gone over them in saying how I use it, but it does help mostly in that initial idea phase, increasing efficiency so that you can create more. And it can help by creative ideas come to mind faster, as well as providing this easily, like always accessible sounding board for ideas. And I think that that's something important to point out is that, I work from home. A lot of us are working from home now. We don't have that office environment. And while for me, I thrive in that, you do miss that thing of, I might have had another copywriter sitting at a desk beside me and we could bounce ideas off of each other. And I still can do that a bit over Zoom, but people are in meetings, there's schedules. And I think that for a writer, especially, it's really good just to always have this platform right there where it's like, let me just put some stuff in and see what comes out and brainstorm and bounce ideas back and forth.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, we can have a whole separate conversation on the pros and cons of an in-office environment and a work-from-home environment. And it's definitely the same thing. Like I enjoy coming into the office, I work out of a co-working space. I like having that background noise or sometimes going to a coffee shop to get those creative juices going. So I think that's a very interesting perspective of, hey, you know what? Here's my coffee shop, right? At my disposal 24/7, 365 days. And I don't want to say it doesn't talk back to you because it definitely does in certain situations. And
I get into arguments with ChatGPT every day.
Yeah, and we were joking about this the other day about how it has to have the last word, right? Yeah. Because if you could say, thanks, ChatGPT, for your support, it's like, no problem, let me know if you need anything else. And it keeps going in circles.
On and on forever.
Yeah, so there's definitely some nuances to the platform that definitely are still being worked out. But talking about kind of the drawbacks too, right? It is an AI, right? It is something that is just a computer, right?
Yeah.
With a brain that we have taught it to know, right? And it's definitely scary. I mean, there's privacy issues, theft, fakes. We were talking about this the other day where we literally had an interview with a deepfake AI, which was wild, by the way.
So weird.
It was the weirdest. Like it's in all my years of doing this, I never thought I would actually have an interview. I actually didn't do the interview. I just got to watch the recording, but it was wild, super weird. But I know you have some issues with ChatGPT around certain key drawbacks, especially for someone who's a writer, right, and who is programming or asking the questions to the AI. So I'm curious, like, I know word repetition was a big one that we talked about the other day, and it's kind of like how you can even know that it's an AI versus a human being, right? So I'd like for you to unpack that particular topic.
Yeah, so AI can be frustrating. I have a list of words that I always tell it not to use, and most of the time it ignores that. I also have particular punctuation I will tell it not to use, and it'll ignore me, and I'll just sort of go back and forth saying, again, this, remember this, and I'm very stern with it.
Like a child. It's like a child. It's like my kids. So
yeah. And I feel like some sort of, mean manager sometimes yelling at it, and I'll be like, could you please just stop doing this? Why are you so obsessed with this? And I'm trying to think, do I want to give away my secrets? But I think anyone who's in this field is going to recognize these sort of hallmarks of AI when you see text that is 100% AI written. It has an obsession with using a colon to sort of split up headlines. So you're always going to see that. It's always splitting things up that way. And it loves particular words. Like I have 6 words that I always say, don't use these. And I'll always take them out. Or if I use them, it's in a very, sparing way that actually makes sense in the copy. I'll list one that I think anyone reading AI copy will notice it. So it uses elevate constantly. Elevate, you'll see it in every single AI text. And
I've noticed that myself. Even when I do emails, it's like elevate. I agree with you. I'm thinking about it now, and it's like, whoa, that is
yeah.
True.
You'll see it in the title, and then they'll put it in the banner. They'll put it in the headline. Then you'll see it 2 more times in the copy. And that's something you really need a human there for to go, this doesn't make sense. This is too much, because that is one of those sort of marketing power words. So that's why it has locked onto it, and it can be good, but you have to use it sparingly. You have to use it properly. You have to use it so it makes sense.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And we don't want you to give away all the secrets. Just like,
Mhm.
just tease the audience a little
Yeah,
bit so they,
you get that one word.
you get the one word. Obviously, privacy is clearly an issue, right?
Yes.
Um, Definitely problematic. There was a big case, privacy and theft and all that kind of stuff, just legal issues. But in your experience, what how do you get around privacy, theft, deepfakes, that kind of stuff, or do you just kind of train it in a certain way, or because you're going to modify it there afterwards, you're kind of less concerned about it? But talk to me a little about some of your concerns about the privacy issues.
Yeah, for me, I think my concern with it in the writing world is what's the word?
Pla Plagiarism?
Plagiarism, yeah. So plagiarism is more the problem, and I can mention the art world as well because I'm also in the visual art world. But for me, with writing, you do worry about it being repetitive. So anything that I am like, so say that I find a sentence or something that I actually like that it's written, and I'm like, oh, that sounds really human, and I kind of want to use this within something. I will always run it through a plagiarism checker. And they'll show you any websites that might appear on, and then you can look and go, oh, how do I want to like rework this? I also run any stuff through like repetitive word counts, just so that it doesn't, too much the same thing. But I think a plagiarism checker is really, really important when you're using ChatGPT for writing. And then in the world of art, that's sort of where I'm not as much of an AI fan because, you have this example how 3 days after he died, Kim Jung-gi, this famous artist, all of his whole catalog was uploaded into AI without his consent, and people were creating new artworks, by him. And some people were looking at that as, oh, well, we're honoring him and sort of like, bringing back holograms of famous musicians and stuff. But when someone doesn't want that, that's not a good thing. So you have some people who I'm sure, like I know a couple artists who are fascinated with AI, and they would be more than happy to say, yeah, here's my catalog, go nuts with it, see what you can do. But when it comes to stealing from people who aren't consenting to that, then that's a really big problem.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think this was one of the bigger issues around the whole writer strike in Hollywood. Same thing with the actor strike, is that, there was this whole thing around Tom Hanks. There was an audio AI version of Tom Hanks coming out and doing things. And it becomes to a point, it's like, well, at what point do the movie studios actually need actors, right? And could they just replace it with an AI? The privacy stuff and the theft is really scary because there was a big situation recently. Samsung, a lot of developers use ChatGPT to help debug code, right? So it's one thing if you put open source code into an AI system, that's fine. But there was this big case or a big issue that Samsung put certain proprietary code into ChatGPT for debugging. And all of a sudden, that proprietary code became public to the world.
Yeah,
right?
I always worry about that. I'm like, how much information do I want in here? And like, because it's learning, it's constantly learning. So obviously, it's learning from what you give it.
Correct. So, it's something like here, even at Arctic Leaf, like we're cognizant about what we're putting in there.
Yeah.
We're never going to put proprietary code and things like that. I mean, so it's just something that really to think about when you're writing content. If you're doing something that is proprietary or something that's very specific to a brand that is not necessarily public knowledge yet, like that's something we have to be really careful about, right?
Yeah. And
go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that with information, that sort of does bring up the research aspect of this, which I think is important to mention about how it's not always accurate. what ChatGPT is saying. It's you can put things in and it'll give you something back, and it is not accurate at all. So if you're trying to use it for something that's like, that you need this informational accuracy, like double check everything. Because
there was a law case. There was a law case. Big law firm in New York used ChatGPT to build a defense case for their client, and ChatGPT made up a reference saying like, hey, this versus this case reference, blah, blah, blah. And they went to court. And then they're like, when they did the research, it's like, no, 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 this case never even happened.
Yeah.
ChatGPT made this whole thing up, right? So very scary from a legal perspective. I probably want to get a different law firm.
Yeah, like that's you gotta double check because I do one of my other side things is I work with a company called Haunted Montreal and we do
Okay,
like spooky historical ghost tours and I do the
very
YouTube
cool.
version of their blogs and their social media and sometimes I'll use ChatGPT to just like come up with little tweets or X's, I don't know what we would call them now that
Yeah, there's still
like
tweets.
what's the
There's still
action
considered.
word? Yeah. But I'll use it just for like, little snippets to post on there, just, because
Yeah.
oh, we need something to put and this will be cute. And it'll just completely make stuff up that has not happened in the city at all. And it'll list schools that don't exist. I'm like, no, no, no.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you need to be concerned about, and also, kind of moving forward. So definitely drawbacks, right? There's
Mhm.
repetitions, not always accurate. Clearly, we've given a couple of examples now
Yeah.
of how that's inaccurate. But again, there's still positivities, right? Moving into like the next phase of like, how do you use this to define business strategy, right? Going into next year, 2024, Arctic Leaf has an initiative to start looking and leveraging AI more in our processes and systems. And again, the way I look at AI is about efficiency, right? How are we going to use this to improve our overall output and,
Mhm.
quote unquote profitability, stability, all that kind of fun stuff, right? So how do use this in business strategy when you're dealing with a customer, right? And, thinking through a strategy for a customer, right? I know how I use it with sales forecasting and trends. QuickBooks actually came out. This is really creepy, by the way. Like QuickBooks
Uh-oh.
is like, oh, we have like an AI tool. I'm like, well, no, 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 no. Like, you should not have my financial data in any form of like AI tool. So there's definitely some concerns around that.
Yeah, that's not
But
good.
yeah, so I'm kind of curious, like, are you using it for processes, systems? We have on there biased decisions, helps to avoid big biased decisions. Like, I'm curious, like, when you're thinking through strategies for a customer, how can we leverage AI, right?
So for me, I don't really do a lot of strategizing. I'm usually,
Oh,
working with
that's true.
like the client manager and stuff with that. But I guess what I can say is that it's I can use it for testing and also for some feedback about performance of content. So as we're moving forward with a client, I can sort of look at things that worked in the past and I can compare using ChatGPT. I can say, here's something that was approved that we liked, and this is the direction, and this is the voice. And it can help sort of maintain that because with so many clients on my plate, I do want to make sure that each one has its own voice. And that
Hmm.
can be sort of tough to maintain sometimes. So you go, okay, well, I just went from sort of, CBD or something, and now I'm doing an apparel line that's like less, sort of hyped up personal trainer vibe or something like that that's more lifestyle and elegant and I can use that to make sure that voice is maintained strategically across a brand. So I think that that's good. And A/B testing, I can say like, here's what I'm working with, here's an idea for a subject, here are 10 different voices, give me subjects in those voices, and then I can work off of them to ensure that I am working in that voice. So it is good
Yeah.
for sort of those little details and helping you get details right.
Yeah. So I definitely, I don't know if you know this, but I did. So when we do our quoting process in our solutions phase, we build out a preliminary Gantt chart, and I actually taught ChatGPT how to come up with a Gantt chart,
Oh,
so we
okay.
put it into our statements of work. So that's an example of like how we would potentially use something like of a business strategy, and then obviously, I read a lot of content on a regular basis. I try to make sure that I'm up to date and up to speed. I'm assuming you do the same thing
Yeah.
from the email perspective. We work with platforms like Klaviyo and Bloomreach, and they're
Mhm.
obviously making changes. They launched a CDP engine, a reviews platform. So there's all this content that kind of comes out. Pretty quick way that I do it is I literally just drop a YouTube link into ChatGPT and say summarize,
Yeah.
and you can get a summary of like a 2 hour long interview with someone in like 26 bullet points. So I think that's really, really cool from a strategic perspective on
Hmm.
how you can leverage it. Um, and again, it's like, going into next year, one of my mandates or one of my objectives is deciding how Arctic Leaf is going to be leveraging AI for 2024 and onwards. So it's like, what is the future of AI in content creation, right?
Hmm.
How do we improve our overall processes? So I mean, we talked about enhancements and faster content. Humans will need to vet content and help with research. You talked about how literally content is created and is wrong.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, regulation and privacy. And then I think the interesting question that I know everyone is going to be asking is like, will this replace me? Right?
Hmm.
So I have my opinion, and I'm going to share it in a minute, but I want to hear your opinion, Holly, because obviously as someone who produces, sounds like you have a long history of content creation in your family, and
Yeah.
as someone who is creative and loves doing this, do you have concerns around AI replacing you? And
Um,
I bet you're safe, by the way. Just I'm putting that out there.
just you bring me into the lion's den here. Let's talk about how we're going to replace you. No, I see. That was my first thought, and this is also fast moving, right? And right when AI was coming out, I mean, let's be clear, like it's been around forever in little ways. Like anything that a computer is sort of thinking on its own, you could class as AI, which I've tried to point out to some people who are just, vehemently 100% against it. Like everyone's using it in some way, day to day, in some little way. So I was concerned at first, but now that I work with it more and that I've learned about it, I think it's really important to do your research. I think that rather than replacing human creators, AI is kind of poised to create new opportunities and roles, and the need for human creativity and, I guess, emotional intelligence and like nuanced understandings will become more critical actually as AI handles these routine tasks. And that was one of the first things I said when I was seeing the art come out. I was saying, okay, yeah, but it might be able to do this, but that is going to use its favorite word, elevate the work of humans, and it'll make it more we'll have more cachet and things like that. So that's where I'm at with it right now.
Awesome. So I think that's a great answer, and I'm on the same page. I believe that AI is going to be a tool. It is just like we have QuickBooks to help us with our finance, just like we have HubSpot to help us with our sales processes and systems, and Klaviyo for email automation. I think it's a tool,
Yeah.
and the tool is only going to be as smart as the individual. So I think creative thinking and critical thinking, which unfortunately our society is a little bit um, degraded on. So,
Yeah.
but that's a whole different subject
Yeah,
matter.
that's a lot.
Um, but I think that it's going to come down to individuals starting to have to think more. And how do you
Mhm.
ask the AI the right questions and the right prompts? And it's going to be important. It's going to be something that's very important going forward because it is going to replace those mundane tasks, which need to be done, but then it allows you to open up more time to actually focus on the creative aspects and come up
Yeah.
with the fun strategies and throw stuff at whiteboards and think through interesting and innovative ideas. And, you know, yeah, it's like throwing up a landing page in 30 seconds, but knowing how to actually tell the AI what you want it to do is where I think it's going to be really, really interesting. So,
Mhm.
um, listen. I'm very bullish on the industry. I'm also, if you've seen me talk and heard me before, I have this love-hate relationship with technology
Yeah.
because I think that it's like we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't, right?
Exactly.
Um, so, um, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see kind of what happens. Some of the steam has kind of slowed down. The industry's kind of slowed down a little bit. Some people have been saying, let's pump the brakes. We don't know what's going to happen. So only time will tell. But Holly, I want to just say thank you for giving me your time today and sharing your thoughts and ideas. This has been super cool. We will have a whole series about AI, so it's not going to just be on content. We're going to have designers' opinions, developers' opinions, our studio manager talking about video animation and all of that kind of stuff. But Holly, I wanted to say huge thank you for joining me today. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a fun conversation.
Yeah. And we are going to post this up on our YouTube channel. It's going to be on our blog. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them. Holly will respond back. Maybe Holly's AI will respond back. You never know. But we definitely want to hear from you if you have ideas or questions or things like that for a future OnTap Lite series. We definitely want to hear about it. But until next time, Holly, thank you so much for your time today. And it is on tap, so you're supposed to raise your glass and say salut, or l'chaim, or cheers, or whatever, salutes, whatever works.
Salut.
So thank you, salut. Thank you guys so much, and tune in next time.